Hello and welcome to the Mobile Accessible Games interview series. I'm your host, Aaron Spelker. Mobile Accessible Games is a group that is dedicated to all things about mobile accessible gaming. And through our interview series, we interview game developers as well as accessibility influencers about the state of accessibility. And today we have a developer, it's Jonathan Chacabaro, and hopefully I said that right, who has created Accessible Letteronic. So, Jonathan, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself to start the interview?
Hi, Aaron. Thank you to invite me in this event. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Jonathan Chacon. Barbero is our second last name. In Spain, we have two last names.
Right.
Okay, I am a researcher and developer in accessibility, usability, and new technologies. I'm completely blind. I am living in Spain. I'm Spaniard, and now I'm working as accessibility lead in Cabify, CABIFY. It's a technology company about mobility in cities, similar to Uber, you know. And in my free time, I develop applications what are completely accessible for many disability profiles. One of them are games.
Excellent. And what city in Spain are you in?
In Seville.
In Seville. So, just for the audience, Jonathan has asked me to speak just a little bit slower. His
Yeah.
English is quite good, as you can all hear, but for understanding me, he just asked me to speak a little slower. So I'm going to do that through the interview just to help him out.
Thank you.
So, Jonathan, can you tell me a little bit about your game, Accessible Letteronic? You know, what is that game, and why did you decide to develop that particular game?
Honestly, Accessible Learning it's not my first accessible game, but the idea of that game in Congress is everybody who I meet, blind people, wanted to play wordless game. You know, wordless.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, everybody was playing that game. Blind people couldn't do it. And okay, I decided to develop that game. And the second thing, the second purpose of that application is when I decide to develop a new application, a new accessible application under my personal branding, I have to study or to learn anything new for me. And I decided to explore the accessibility in Swift UI, the new framework to design new interfaces by Apple. And of course, everybody said Swift UI is not compatible with the old API for accessibility in iPhone and Mac. Well, it's an opportunity for me to research and to find new challenge for me. Okay, honestly, the more complicated thing for that game was not Swift UI accessibility problem. The problem was the dictionary for words in English and Spanish.
You know, speaking of the accessibility, your game, Accessible Letteronic, has more than just the traditional voiceover type of accessibility. There's haptic response, there's color contrast, there's braille support. So, you know, talk to me a little bit more about all those different accessibility features. And then specifically, I'm interested in the visual accessibility, like the color contrast. As a blind developer, how did you implement, you know, something that's kind of a site-based accessibility?
Okay, before I was accessibility lead in Cabify, I was working in other companies, and one of them I was an accessibility consultant for web interfaces and desktop interfaces, and I had to learn a lot of accessibility for physical interfaces and for digital interfaces. I am a accessibility consultant for more than 25 years. I am 43. I became blind when I was 15. Okay. I started to my first program. I started to type code when I was 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I wasn't blind when I was 4, and I was creating application, of course, little application, little stupid games, with an Amstrad CPC, you know,
Yep.
8-bit computer.
Right.
Well, when I was 10 years old, my doctor said, "Hey, there is a possibility you will be blind because you have a special sick, glaucoma." Okay, I have to learn something about what is to be a blind man. Okay, and I started to study a little bit. I had a computer, Commodore Amiga 500.
Oh, yeah.
And Commodore Amiga have a little TTS system. I started to play with it. But when I was 15, okay, no more games, no more playing. I have to start to work harder about accessibility. Accessibility is not only for blind. In fact, I have problem with other mates, other accessibility consultant who they are blind, because I am more interested in other disability profiles than blind profile, because okay, I am living as a blind man because I am blind, you know. I don't need more information for visually impaired profiles. I need more information for other disability profiles, and I am researching for other solutions. For example, now I'm very interested in cognitive disabilities and seniors profiles. In my current position, we have an interesting problem because we want seniors and people with cognitive disabilities to use our service in mobility in the cities. Of course, an application in a smartphone is very complicated for seniors or for other disability profiles. But it's other topic, okay? If you want, we can center in games, if you want.
No, that's very interesting. So I was fully sighted until my mid-40s, and then lost my sight in an accident. And while I had kind of a real fringe understanding of a blindness disability, to suddenly be blind really opened up like all of the aspects of your life that are impacted by that particular disability. And you know, I've obviously been very well immersed in that disability, but I have started to pay attention to other disabilities. You know, what are the people who have mobility, you know, issues, or other types of, you know, low vision as opposed to blindness that, you know, everybody, you know, suffers or will eventually suffer from some sort of accessibility need that they could use some support to help them with.
Yeah. In my case, personal opinion is I believe in an inclusive society, and technology should be for everybody. Accessibility should be a base of the society. Now I'm wearing a T-shirt with my personal leitmotif. Accessibility should be the base of the project, not a part of the product. It's my personal motto.
Yeah.
And
oh, go ahead.
all efforts, my personal effort is to follow this motto.
Now, so you're 15 and you go blind. It sounds like, you know, you've did some further study in computer programming? Did you go on to university and do things in computer programming? Is that what your path was?
Well, after my high school, I decided to try university. Okay. After 2 years fighting with teachers, fighting with the educational system, because in that years blind students were not protected by the system, by the government yet. Okay.
Right.
And decide to leave the university because I had the knowledge. I honestly, it sounds bad, but it was real. I wasn't learning anything new. I was worried. I was tired with everybody said a blind man couldn't be a software engineer. Why not? Okay, I left the university and I started to work as a accessibility consultant, and I was still creating applications for little companies who needed accessible application or accessible website. And of course, I was continuing researching and studying more about technology and accessibility. And after 25 years, I'm here. My first game for first accessible game for iOS was published in 2010. It was
Okay, good.
accessible Minesweeper.
Gotcha. So after leaving school and you said you found work and you did some accessibility consulting, did you have to find that on your own? Or were you kind of like your own company doing consulting for others, or did you manage to find employment with a company doing that type of work?
Yeah, well, I had good luck because in every place that I was, I started to spread knowledge about technology, about inclusion, and I always show my work. I always show my projects, and I always show the possibility of an accessible project. And many people knew me, and my first work they found me, they were looking for me, and when I decided to leave the university, they sent me a message. Hey, do you want to work with us? Okay, I have anything more better now. Think
That's
about in 20 uh, 2002, there were a few blind computer science programmers in Europe.
Yeah, speaking of
Uh,
that, I just a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, interviewed a man named Oriol Gomez, who is a blind game developer out of Barcelona,
mhm,
who's done several different games. So I don't know, have you had an opportunity to cross paths with him in your
mhm.
game development?
Yeah, I know Oriol. He's a good mate.
Um, so when you are creating your games, and I talking to some other blind gamer developers, it seems that one of the big struggles is finding a software tool that is accessible to create those games. So as a blind game developer, what software are you using to create your games?
When for Apple platforms, I use Xcode. Okay, Objective-C, it wasn't a unknown programming language. I started programming in BASIC. After it, I started in Smalltalk and Objective-C about 1985. I started with Object Pascal and Pascal, and now I am using Xcode for iOS and macOS, but I am using Android Studio when I have to develop an accessible solution for Android. And when I have to develop a solution for web, I use Visual Studio Code, and of course, Google Chrome for debugging and to improve the code and to explore the results.
How accessible is Xcode for you to use to create a game? Is that a very accessible piece of software?
No, honestly, no. There is no fully accessible development tool now. All of them have problem. Xcode is a good solution to type code, but when you have to use a visual tool to design your interface, your user interface, it's better to design your interface using code instead the visual tools. Android Studio has the same problem. Visual Studio, not the Visual Studio Code little editor, the other one, the Visual Studio big application for Windows. It offers a good solution to design the position of different controls in a window, but only if you are using yours for Windows, the screen there. Honestly, I prefer to design all my user interfaces from code because I have all the control, I have all the information to create an image in my mind to understand where the position of each element, the color, the background, everything about the user interface.
Do you have someone to help you that, to kind of see that the visual came out the way that you were hoping it would?
Yeah, to develop some application, for example, my accessible games, my wife helps me designing the visual contents. She's not a programmer, she's not a designer, but she loves me and she decided to help me,
Yeah. Uh, so is the creating of the various games that you have on the platform, is that kind of the primary thing that you do, or is that the secondary thing that you do for work?
It's complicated because in my free time, I develop alternative application different than my official job. Um, uh, uh, when I am worried with a platform, I decide to jump to other technologies. Think about, I was working as a technology researcher for more than 4 years. A friend of mine said, I am a technological kamikaze. Every new technology, I love it.
You dive right in.
Yeah.
Um, so you mentioned a couple of the other games, or at least one of them, accessible Minesweeper. What other games have you created that the people who are blind or visually impaired or who have some other issues might be able to find on the App Store?
Okay. Only the ones who are still published. Okay. Accessible Minesweeper.
Okay.
Accessible Letters Up. Accessible Othello.
Okay. Yeah.
And the other one was accessible Fruit Machine, a slot machine, but when the legal frame in Europe for gambling games changed, Apple said, hey, if you are not a casino company, you cannot publish this kind of games. You go, okay, remove it. I don't want to have a casino company. In Europe, there are a lot of problems about the legal
Gambling.
frame. Yeah.
Uh,
I had published some other application, but they were not games. An accessible carousel in 3D using SceneKit framework. A 3D environment to select an option using 3D sound and 3D graphic. Well, it was an experiment, a personal experiment to explore 3D framework by Apple. Well, in the future, maybe I will publish a 3D game, but I have no enough time to explore more.
When you were adding all those accessibility features into Accessible Letteronic, which was the hardest feature to, get implemented into the game and get working?
Game center support. I am working now. I think about I add new feature only when I am on my personal vacations. Okay, now exactly today I started my Christmas vacations, and tomorrow I will start to add new features to Letteronic. I am working in tvOS support for accessible Letteronic, and I hope we'll have enough time to add game center support to offer the possibility to the user to play against them. For example, you start a match and you find other friend. First, you type a word. If you don't get the right word, the other user can have an opportunity to get the right word.
Do you,
It's
do you get
more
to
complicated.
do you get to see what the opponent guessed, so that you can kind of use not only what you guessed but what they guessed to inform your next choice?
Yeah, I have to study the possibilities. Accessible Othello offer game center support to play against other players, but I have to design the playing method for Accessible Letteronic, because I have to study the new limits of Game Center, because Game Center, when I added it to Accessible Othello, it was 2013 maybe, or 14. And now Game Center is different,
Sure.
and I have to study it.
I would like to talk to you about, there's obviously the component of coding a game, but beyond that, you've got to market that game and you got to inform people that the game is out there. You got to be a business person who decides how much are you going to charge people to play that game. Can you talk to me about, your experience with what it takes to put a game on the App Store that's beyond just the coding of the game itself, those other marketing and sales and setting
Yeah,
prices components of that game?
honestly, when I publish a game, it's not for commercial. I'm not a company, but I know other mates, other other programming mates, that they are publishing new application only for marketing or for a business, and it's very complicated. I decide to publish my application one payment for each game. Okay, you pay one time and you get the game. Okay, no more, because I only want to cover all the money that I waste in technology, in my free time,
Sure.
in paying to Apple for the license to publish in the App Store. To publish in the App Store is not free.
Right.
I only want to avoid waste my personal money in a hobby. You know.
Right. So since you're not putting the games out for, let's say, commercial success, you're just trying to recoup, what you put in. How do you gauge the success of your games? When you put any of those particular games out, how do you say, I did a good job on that, or that game was a success, or that one, did better than the
Well,
one before? Like, how do you gauge?
with the feedback of the user, I received very good feedback of all of my from all of my games. I'm very happy because I received emails and messages from people who have a child or a father who was with a new disability. I remember one case when I published Accessible Minesweeper, my first game. A mommy sent me an email talking about his son. He was becoming blind in a long process, and he always was sad. And when she found my game, she offered her iPhone to his son, and he started to be happy.
Yeah.
She told me the story. Okay, I think I'm making things that improve this reality. I have problem, other people has problem, but okay, we are a little bit more happy, you know?
Right. No, oh,
And
absolutely. I mean, that's the group that I started, which is called Mobile Accessible Games, is really all about trying to inform the blind community about all of these different games that are available for them to play and are
yeah,
accessible, and find things like Letteronic. You know, you can't play Wordle, it's not accessible. Well, here is a Wordle equivalent that's a great game and has even more features in it, and it's accessible to you. So we have, you know, over 110 accessible games that are on our platform that you know, I've kind of let the community know, you know, here are games that you can play. They're across many different genres, whether they be word games or first person shooters or math games, whatever the case may be. That, you know, hopefully there's a game for you on this list of 111 so far that you can find and enjoy. And then just, as you said, just make you feel a little happy, make your life
yeah.
feel a little lighter. So that's,
Mm,
you know, what we're trying to achieve.
yeah,
How, you know, first, I'm inspired by all that you've been able to accomplish. You know, you continued even with the loss of your sight to do something that you love. That's, you know, a great
yeah.
accomplishment unto itself. You know, you're a blind developer putting out these games. Um, and what I really want to know is, you know, how can we as a blind community support a person such as yourself who are creating games that are available for us to play? You know, what is the best way that we can keep you going and keep you, you know, being able to put out, you know, 5, 10,
Uh,
15 more games?
Okay, first, buy the accessible application because there are still few. Okay, there are a lot of accessible application who we want. We have to pay for them. Okay, it's not a problem. We have to pay. No other. But the other thing is a good feedback. Okay, send feedback to the developers. No, hey, this application doesn't run. No, it is not a good feedback.
Right. Be
I have a
specific.
problem. Yeah, yeah. We need information to fix the problem. You
Right.
know,
Right.
and the
What are the exact conditions
yeah.
that caused you a problem? Yeah.
Okay, I give you an example about the bad feedback. Okay, I love your Minesweeper, but I prefer other game. Okay, it's your problem, not mine.
Right.
Okay, give me more information. I prefer other game about dot dot dot. Okay, give me information.
Right.
Okay, of course, share your experience in the communities like Applebee's, blind games community. You know, I know more communities in Spanish than in English. Honestly, I know Applebee's and blind games in Google groups. I don't know more. I don't know more communities for blind people, but I always share my experience in my personal blog. When I find a new accessible application, I share it. And of course, think about one little thing. Developers are person.
Yes.
They are not slaves for people with disabilities. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's a pity, but the developers don't know about accessibility yet, because accessibility is optional for many frameworks, for many development frameworks like Android, like Windows, like Mac OS, of course, Linux.
Right.
Only iOS and iPadOS offer a base of accessibility by default. Developers don't know any people with disability in many cases, of course. And developers many times when receive bad feedback about, hey, your application is not accessible. What is accessibility?
Right.
That's the problem. Accessibility is optional in many cases, and of course, there is no accessibility lessons in universities or computer science course of computer science tutorial. Think about, for example, when I decide to study anything new for me, I cannot buy a new EPUB or a new electronic book, because many things, the lesson is type this code in your Xcode application, and the code is in a picture.
Image. Yeah.
What's the problem about? There are a lot of problems about accessibility, because accessibility is invisible yet for the society.
Right. Yeah, and to your point, this is actually why I started this interview series to talk to game developers, because I really wanted the community to learn that there are real life people who are trying their hardest to create accessible games, for them to play, and, to make sure that they understand that there's a person, behind. It's not a nameless, faceless entity that's putting this game forth for them. It's a real life person who's trying real hard. So that's one of the big goals of this interview series is expose people to games and developers and how it all works, but also make sure to humanize the game developer to the community. So you said to reach out and give you feedback. Where can people reach you to give you that feedback? What is your preferred method for people to contact you?
I always offer a channel in my application. Of course, there is my personal website, tyflosaccessiblesoftware.com, or my personal blog, programaraciegas.net. Programaraciegas is a work group of programming in darkness, or programming as blind. It's a little joke. Okay. Of course, my LinkedIn profile is public. Okay. Of course, in the App Store you can find me. Apple and Google offers information about the developers. If a user wants to send feedback to the developer, there are a lot of channels. But remember, be polite, be gentle, because developers are persons,
Right.
and we have emotions, and sense, and something similar.
Absolutely. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for taking time to speak with me and talk about your game, Accessible Letteronic, which is available on the Apple App Store. And we really appreciate you, creating games for the blind community and ensuring that they're accessible. And we look forward to future games that you have coming out. Is there anything? I know you mentioned an update for Accessible Letteronic, but do you have any new games that you're working on right now?
Well, I'm exploring about 3D technologies. Okay, but I need more time for that, and I'm developing a little application for macOS. It's not a game. It's only applications that said you are in the center of your screen. When I have a video meeting, I have a problem with, okay, I
Right.
am on the left, on the right. It's a little tool to help me. When I was describing it to other other blind mate, it is useful. I need it. Okay, I will publish it when I finish it.
That's
And
great. I'm sure that half of my videos I'm half out of the screen, so I apologize to my community for that. But I figure it's mostly a blind people, so they probably don't realize
yeah.
that I messed that up. So
And the next game, okay, the next game, I hope I can finish an arcade game with more action, because all of my games are board games. The with a grid, and you have to select a position. Okay,
right.
easy, strategic. Okay, but there are blind people who needs action games. Well, I am exploring that.
Great. Well, I'm excited to see what you come out with, and please reach out to me, and we'd love to talk to you when
Okay,
your new games are coming out. So
it will
again,
be a
everybody,
pleasure.
please check out Accessible Letteronic. Download that from the App Store, and give good informative feedback to Jonathan so he can make improvements. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me this afternoon.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.